Welcome to the Falls Count Everywhere podcast. The Falls Count Everywhere podcast would like to mention our friends at the following. We talk wrestling. For stories and headlines you won't see pushed anywhere else in the wrestling media, then We Talk Wrestling is your go-to spot. Looking to see what independent shows are happening around your region? Then We Talk Wrestling has you covered. Come join the fun on Facebook's #1 community for professional wrestling. And Outside the Ring STL, join Shaft and General Vader along with others who share their love for professional wrestling as they talk about the recent shows from the major wrestling companies, all independent promotions from around the St. Louis area, and even talk about great moments in St. Louis professional wrestling history. Find them on Facebook at Outside the Ring STL. Get ready for episode number 73 of the Falls Count Everywhere podcast as we welcome back Cauliflower Alley Club's Ambassador and Communicator and longtime legendary wrestling promoter, Mr. Herb Simmons. This podcast is scheduled for one episode where falls count everywhere. We thank all of you joining us for tonight's episode of the Falls Count Everywhere podcast. Before we get underway, we pay honor, tribute, and respect to the greatest nation in the world as we play our national anthem.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, for that ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the
Hey, good evening, everybody. Somebody's having a party, and I'm barely trying to get myself together here as we are on live. Episode 73 of the Falls Count Everywhere podcast. I'm Rick Ruby. To the right of your screen is the Gem City Mouth. Zmiz. What's up, buddy?
Up? I'm tired.
Yeah. Which, by the way, yeah, you're tired because you had a nice little weekend to yourself, you and the wife, because yesterday was your birthday.
I'm 36 years of age now, buddy. I'm getting old. Like you.
Nah. Yeah. Yeah, you see this, bud, right here? When you start getting that, then you can start saying something about getting old, right? As of right now, you have no right to be saying about you being old.
All the will wishes I got yesterday. Thank you, by the way, to anyone and everyone that is listening. If you sent me a happy birthday wish, even yourself, my dude, I thank you all. It was very humbling to see all those love pouring out. My phone was blowing up all day yesterday, and I'm trying to enjoy the Shed Aquarium, Field Museum, Science and Industry. We had a blast. Went to the Navy Pier. I even did some tourist shit and went to the Bean. Had to go touch the Bean. But
Yeah.
no, thank you all. But everybody else was telling me I was old, so I'm gonna embrace it.
I'm gonna embrace it.
Yeah, no, I'm young. I'm young at heart, and I'm gonna stay that way. I got told by a Uber driver, the nice guy that to stay a kid. So
yeah. Growing up, what's that? I mean, what are you gonna do to growing up? I mean, I guess it's something we all have to do eventually.
I mean, I was playing video games just before I came on here, so
yeah. Speaking of which, we're going to get to our opening topics here for just in a short bit here. But you mentioned something about video games, and I'll tell you, for the past 4 days, there's something that I have looked at, I have posted, I have got to share this, and if you have not seen it, you've got to see it. But this here. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to share it.
Is it the AEW backstage assault?
Looking at it. This is how I'm driving today, and I'm just seeing this, and we're talking about this is first. This is not a real game, by the way, guys. But somebody just drawn up artwork. I posted this on the We Talk Wrestling page.
Yes.
I mean, this right here is gold. Because if everybody knows about the whole CM Punk situation now, which now apparently he's been secretly let go, and now he's getting paid almost 2 years out of a contract because he had to be a whiny little bitch about some things. But this right here, I mean, I'll tell you, it's what is that? Nick Jackson.
It's Nick Jackson. And then you got Andrade and Sammy and their BS that's going back and forth.
Sammy's giving the California high, and Andrade's just kind of upset, and Kenny in the background. I mean, I don't know. I had to just share that here because
oh, it's funny. It's downright hilarious.
It's probably about the funniest thing. There were very little things that I laugh at, on a continual basis. There's very little, but this right here just really got me in the feels that I just can't stop. There was one night I was chuckling in bed about it, trying to go to sleep. It was that
and it come up in your vision. You're laying there. And you're it sucks, man, because AEW has such. I talk about it all the time. AEW has such great talent, and it's becoming a laughingstock. When Impact Wrestling is getting more notoriety for things they're doing and more respect, and they were once one of the biggest laughing stocks in the wrestling industry when it comes to the mainstream wrestling world. That says something, man. That says something. I hope Tony Khan and the guys get it together. HR needs to be hired. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you're talking about HR.
We need an HR team.
Who wants to be HR? I mean, other than WWE, but who wants to be HR of a company like that, man? I mean, oh my God.
Shit, cool. Tony, if he's going to pay all these guys, I'll go be their HR manager.
Yeah.
I'll gladly tell these wrestlers to sit their asses down. Good dang.
Hey, you, shut up. We got a company to run, will you? Yeah, so.
It just makes no sense to me. This is something that irritates me too, even within the local wrestling industry. There's no need for the bad mouthing of other people, other companies. If you don't like somebody that you work with in the wrestling world, do your match if you have to do a match. Or if you can, and you have the tug, I guess, be like, hey, I just don't want to do that one. Nothing against them. Just, I'm not feeling it. Can I go do something else? Or just don't book me. Why do you guys got to be, why? Why does it have to be this ego infested? I get it. We all have these inflated things, but God dang, guys.
I know. I get it too. Like you said, I've a buddy of mine that's down in Tennessee had encountered a situation too, which I'm not going to get into, but from what I've seen, and even this guy's gone off on a podcast saying his side of the story, but because of that, he's not getting booked in other places now. So we're going to touch on that probably in the later part of the show, but
That's ridiculous.
your actions will definitely be noticed, and sometimes it's not good. So,
No, it's just it doesn't
well,
benefit anybody. It's not
no,
benefiting you. It's not benefiting the other person. It's not benefiting your company, their company. It's not benefiting anybody. So why put energy to it?
right, exactly.
That's all I want to say on it.
Yeah. But hey, while we're up here, let's go ahead and let's go through our upcoming events here. So,
Sure.
yeah, this coming Saturday for ACW is the Special Olympics Slam. Once again, you get to meet UFC Hall of Famers Matt Hughes and, of course, Dan DeBee-Severn, who was actually around this area not too long ago. Hollywood actor Bishop Stevens. And, of course, there is a ladies' micro championship match between beautiful Bobby Joe and luscious Lori with little Kato as a special guest referee. I will be at the show attending, by the way. Second annual Memorial Marcus Manfield Memorial Battle Royal. And so a lot of this is to help the Special Olympics. So if you're out in the area, Louisiana, Missouri, Bowling Green area, Lincoln County area, whatever, that's a show to check out. I think the bell time is at 6. Yeah, bell time's at 6. Doors open at 5. So there you go. And then also we do, on the other side of the river, once again for SICW, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this tonight, with the big lumberjack match as the main event, as Kowalski looks to regain the Central States Championship from Bobby D, and also a highlighted match of Sheik Prater facing the Big Texan, who is now one half of the new SICW Tag Team Champions. For more information or to reserve your seats, 618-286-4848. Once again, that's at the East Carondelet Community Center.
Okay,
right
okay.
there.
Bobby D does rule. I agree, but I like Kowalski too. Kowalski, like I've said this before, and I think I've said this to Herb himself. I am not one for a lumberjack match. I never could stand them. I just don't get into them. But if there's two men in the industry going today that could probably make a lumberjack worth a damn, it's going to be those two men right there. Kowalski's going to tear Bobby D's head off. Bobby D's going to try to take Kowalski's head off. Like, those two are just going to go at it, and it's going to be like, they need the lumberjacks. They need them. And Zmiz doesn't say that because lumberjack matches, sorry, they're yawn usually for me.
Yeah. I get you, man. But also, if you attend the show this coming Saturday night there, don't forget about the free TV taping where the matches will start at noon. That's for SICW All-Star Wrestling, and which can be seen 8 o'clock on YouTube, Roku, and even on the SICW Wrestling Explosion page. So that's every Sunday night right before we come on at 8 o'clock. And that's a show you do not want to miss on that. And then let's talk about I got the correct poster.
No. Actually, hold on. Let me see this. Let me see if I can do this for you real quick because you need the proper one. There's gonna be a new one coming out here soon too. Access to photos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it as we do here. So it's the Dead Man's Party that's at the Pepsi Arena in Quincy, Illinois for Illinois Elite Wrestling.
Hey, I'm the one that gets tongue-tied usually. Come on.
Yeah, I know. So, want to get advance tickets, go to Illinois Elite Wrestling ticketleague.com. Kids 5 and under are free. Kids $5. Adults, if you get lazy and pay at the door, you're going to pay more. So that's all I got to say. This features the Dead Man's Party match. Let me see. I've been a part of the Dead Man's Party match. If you want to know what it's all about, you up in the Quincy area. Saturday, October 22nd, that's your place to be. Go check it out. You will not be disappointed when you see the Dead Man's Party. Let's see here. I always logged on to Facebook for some reason. But anyway,
I just sent you a message through there. The messenger.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Of the proper picture poster.
The proper poster.
The proper poster.
I did not get the message yet, sir. So I don't know. I
stink butts. Well, if we get it later, we'll have to show them. If not,
Oh, now it
well.
comes through.
Oh
I think it's
well.
my connection again. I think I got everything running. Oh, look. Okay. Oh, okay. We're gonna have to show this like at the. Okay. All right. If I can get this saved, wow.
Thought you'd like that.
Yeah. That was yeah, that's funny. That's funny. that I will say that is funny. I will admit. So let's see what I would have to see where my own that photos on that. I think I have to maybe go to. Oh, I'll find a way to get it on.
Well, yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, so we'll do that. There we go. Maybe we'll at the end of this. Who knows?
What's the next
Yeah.
show? There
Yeah.
it is.
There you go. October 29th, IWA Productions presents Wrestling for a Cause for Breast Cancer Awareness at 521 Perkins Street in
Save
Mount
the
Vernon,
boobies.
Illinois. So $10 for floor seats, $5 for the bleachers. There's a silent auction and a kids' costume contest because, of course, Halloween's right around the corner. So, yeah, follow IWA Productions on Facebook for more information on that show. Saturday, November 12th is Forsaken for New Genesis Wrestling at the Watson, Illinois Civic Center, 103 Jackson Street. Make sure you visit newgenesiswrestling.com for more information on the tickets. So $10 for kids, adults 15 and up, and kids are $5. 5 and under are free. And yeah, see Marcellus Knight defend his title. And,
Yeah.
oh, no, sorry. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I have to find a way to get that reloaded here. I think I will in just a moment. So I don't know. I gotta stop this. Maybe if I can reload this. So yeah. Well, we're getting close here. I don't want to push anymore. I know we talked about maybe what we're going to bring up. We'll probably bring that up maybe at the end of the show. But because we want to get our fans' participation, and in regards to the Extreme Rules pay-per-view last night, that's all I'm going to say. But if you want to know what we're going to talk about at the end, then just stick around to the end. But yeah, so oh my gosh, I forgot I had my music here. I didn't have my music here, but anyway, I'm doing too much here. I actually had a busy day. I've actually had a busy weekend. So, but without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get on to our featured guest of the evening, who of course is one of the longtime legendary promoters, even around the St. Louis area. Been around it since the 70s, and we're going to get into that here in just a short bit, but just had a lot of recent happenings, big shows, and events just happened with the promotion of SICW. We're going to recap on those and even talk about even with the future of SICW. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to welcome our first or our only guest of the evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Falls Count Everywhere podcast. Welcome back once again, Mr. Herb Simmons. All right, Herb, how you doing, sir?
Fine. I appreciate you guys inviting me back tonight. I try to catch your show each time. In fact, when you guys were off the air for a while there, it was kind of like having withdrawals. So
I like to hear that.
I'm really glad you guys are back because you bring the knowledge and you bring the camaraderie that is lacking in our business. I believe you're out there advertising all of the upcoming events, and it's always been a pleasure to see when you do that, when guys can put their differences aside, and as long as the fans are the ones that are coming out as a winner, I think that's what we should all be concerned about.
All right.
Facts. Big fat facts.
That is a fact. That is a fact for certain. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna talk about some things. From I guess from like the past couple of month and a half or so, and then we're talking about some other things here upcoming here. And as I try to get my notes loaded, that's what I'm trying to do is get my notes loaded. My notes wouldn't load for some reason. I got to try to reload them. I can't memorize everything, guys. I'm not that smart. Let me just say. But I
it only
can
gave me
read.
like 10 minutes.
They just slowed down me here tonight. I don't know what the heck's going on. So, I, I, I think my computer's got the Rona. I don't know. But we'll get this.
Can we joke about that yet?
Oh, yeah. Is it too soon? Oh, yeah, it's too soon. It's always too soon. It's too soon. I will be posting up our number. We actually do have our caller listener line that is back. I'll be posting up the number here shortly because we definitely want some interaction even for those in the chat room here tonight. Also, I'm putting on here on this ticker here. Make sure you visit StreamYard.com/Facebook to give you permission if you're watching on anything else besides the Falls Count Everywhere page, which you should. Hopefully you should. Please do. And also like and subscribe for both of our pages for YouTube and Facebook because we are streaming on both. So please do that. But make sure you give permission to see your name because we see this. We see Facebook user. You see Facebook user.
So if you're on We Talk Wrestling, get over there to StreamYard. Just click it, and then voila, we'll see your name.
Yeah. Yeah, and then again, so apparently somebody, I guess
somebody out there.
See, this is another reason why people, it's like getting the anonymous call every time, which, by the way, I never answer those, so don't call me anonymous. You're wasting your time. But anyway, so Herbo, like I said, you've had some pretty big events that happened recently for SICW. Even going back to the event that you had actually for the Gateway Grizzlies, where you had wrestling night there. Actually had postponed, but then it was rescheduled on Wednesday. And then, of course, even after that, a return to the Missouri Athletic Club for MAC2, second year in a row. And do you feel that shows like these will continue to do so in the future? And if so, what legends or matches would you like to see happen at those events?
Well, I think to answer your question, yeah, I mean, they're already booking shows into next year. And that's kind of what we're known for is the repeat business going to these locations. The Gateway Grizzlies it's always been a great time there. Going back to the first show we did when we had Baron Von Raschke and Rocky Johnson and people like that there. And then when we brought Kurt Angle in there for him, and then this latest one, I got to tell you, I was really surprised with this year's return trip to the Missouri Athletic Club because, last year they wanted to have Ric Flair there, and of course I was able to get him booked, and of course then 48 hours before the show they got the plug pulled on him, and that was right when that airplane ride from hell story broke, and he kind of went into hiding for a week or so, and but we were able to get Ted DiBiase to come in there and do a pitch in for him, and Ted was able to get a good payday for that show, and of course this year when they called me and said, hey, we'd like to have you back, and we'd like to have 4 legends, and so that's what we ended up doing with Slaughter and Jimmy Hart and who else we have, Bob Orton and Jerry Lawler. So and it was a fabulous show again this year. Even got Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler kind of interacting a little bit from the old Memphis storylines. And so, yeah, but they've already reached out. And, those are the type of shows that are up on top of that pedestal of some of the best that I've done over the soon to be 50 years. When you can do those nostalgia shows, whether it be at the Fairmount Park racetrack or the only show that was ever produced at the Fox Theater, those kind of rank right up there with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I know because the first time that the MAC did the show, there is all pushing, with the release of the Wrestling at the Chase book, which is still good to get, and by Mr. Ed Wheatley, which of course you can still get, and it's a really awesome book to have. It's a really nice piece to have, and if you're a wrestling historian or even a big fan of professional wrestling, you need to have that book.
Yeah, facts again.
Well, and I think everything. They say things happen for a reason, and when I was first approached to help Ed with the book, it was the perfect timing, and of course, it was like the domino effect. The book after it it took quite a while to put that all together, but then all of a sudden here comes the idea of doing the documentary on it. And of course, I'm hopefully that Ed will win an Emmy on that next year when the Emmys come out, and because the people are still talking about the great job the documentary was, along with the book. So, it just kind of reignited the wrestling in the region, because it was tops for many, many years. And I think each time something like that happens, or you have a show where, like a year ago, October, we brought in 11 of the legends. You guys, I think, were at that show at the Belclair Fairgrounds, Demolition and people like that.
Huge.
And that's why this year, we followed it up with a cage match. The steel cage, we was kind of worried about if it was going to get delivered on time, but it's a brand new one to fit the ring. And but I think everybody who was there for that, with those 4 big men in there, the steel cage will hold up without a problem.
Yeah, and I can say on as personal experience, I took a nice look in that cage. It is iron. It is solid. So if someone gets smashed up against that cage part, you sure to know that you're going to either get a bruise or a welt for certain. And that cage does not play.
Well, look who you put in there. You put the Faces of Fear and then Attila Khan and Sheik Prater. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, the last cage I had lasted 22 years. And of course, it was a chain link fence. And, periodically we had to do a little repairs on that. But I think this steel cage will be around way, way after I'm gone.
Oh my gosh, I would hope so. Depending on where you keep it, you want to make sure that it's. I'm sure it's pretty much protected. I would say, just kind of sprinkle Rust-Oleum on it.
Andy Warner is a perfectionist when it comes to the ring, his ring, and the cage, and he doesn't leave it sit out in the element and let the wood warp on it, or no, if knowing him,
you got to let the cage sit out there and get the rust. That's the best.
Oh yeah,
I think he carries a can of spray paint around with him, and every time he gets a ding on it, he's brushing it up. So you got to take pride in your product.
Yeah, EMS workers carry Narcan, and us workers would carry tetanus shots in case in case we get something like that, man. Oh my god, but man, that's great. Yeah, so that's awesome, and I hope I hope to see something like this more in the future. Maybe an MAC3, that would be nice, but we just have to wait to see if it happens.
Yeah, like I said, they've already reached out to me, and looking at some dates, and the fairground is going to be our home here real quickly, I believe. So there's a lot going on, as I've been telling fans and posting. If they thought 2022 was a big, 2023 is shaping up to be bigger. The show we had in Fairmont City, Illinois, was off the chart. It's just wrestling is hot right now, and as long as you give a good product out there and you don't burn it out, I think, of course, it's always been a roller coaster ride. I remember Sam saying it, every 10, 15 years it'll go up and down. And so we're at the top of it right now, because the fans are getting to see a mixture of good stuff. Our TV, I just watched this week's episode tonight, and we get a lot of feedback on that. Of course, Rick, you've been a part of all of that, a big integral part of our TVs, and we're going to continue to do that. And the fans seem to enjoy it, and they like coming out to those little Sunday afternoon TV tapings and seeing that side of it.
Nice.
So with all that being said, what elements or factors do you put into place to keep them traditions of the chase alive for professional wrestling within the St. Louis area, and even more broad, like Kansas City? Even you touch it all, Herb. You touch it all. I've seen you touch it all. So what factors are you using to keep that alive?
Well, I think that one of the things that we do is, and we talked about that at the beginning, the fans want to see a good mixture. And I think that's what they're getting from out there. And yeah, there's better products, and that's going to be in anything, Some people like Pepsi Cola, some people like Coca Cola. You know, some people's going to like the ABC company, and they're going to like the EFG company. So, but they're getting a good mixture. Where we cover the demographics is with our classic matches that we have access to. And that's why, you know, each week we try to add one of them into our TV program, because, you know, you get to see our local talent that we're pushing. But then all of a sudden here, like tonight, you had Bruiser Brody and Bob Sweetan in a tag match against two guys. And so it takes them back in time. The other thing, you know, I try to work with all the promoters, you know, Scotty Z down at New Breed Wrestling, Searcher. You know, there are some promoters out there that want to work with you, some of them that don't, and that's their choice. I never force SICW on anybody. Jason Jones from Mid States, him and I've been on the phone today talking about dates to where we can maybe not book the same dates, to where he can use some of our talent, we can use some of his. And that's kind of what the old territory days was. And I'm kind of fixed on that. And I think that if you could ever get everybody to think that way, man, you talk about two groups of individuals benefit by that. The workers get more places to work, and the fans get to see better product. And but it's just hard. Everybody wants to have their own little den of iniquity, and they should have their footprint, and they should be able to have that as their home base, as we've always called it. You know, we don't go out and knock on the doors and say, hey, we want to come and rent your hall, do this or that. You know, the business that we get is repeat business from organizations that call and say, hey, we need help raising funds. And, you know, we had one last year, we raised $40,000 in one show for a fire chief that had been diagnosed with cancer. You know, we got one fire department that in 8 years, we've raised over $40,000 for. So those are the kind of things that I think we take pride in doing, and that works. Instead of, you know, what is in it just for me. And, you know, I've got a great locker room. We got a great fan base. You know, we are expanding. You know, we went to Sandoval, Illinois. They called us to the high school there. We're going to Quincy, Illinois. I think that's your hometown, because I still got a deposit on the Oakley Center from back when COVID
back in the day.
Well, if you remember, yeah, we had Tony Atlas, and of course the late Road Warrior Animal I was bringing him in there, and my deposit is still there on the building. I just got to get the date picked, and you know, we got a lot of response from the fans there in that Quincy area, because that was years ago. You know, the NWA ran up there, up into Des Moines, Iowa, and all that area. So. We'll do that if the time will allow, but we're not going to forget our home base, because the home base is what's made us what we are. And but I think that as far as keeping the old St. Louis wrestling alive, I don't dispute the fact that having the tapes that were from there, dating some of them back to 1962, all the programs, all the cards, all the finishes. That all helps, because we advertise that. We post a lot of that stuff, just like those matches every Sunday night. People enjoy that. That keeps the fire lit of what wrestling in the Midwest used to be like.
Nice.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, and before we get on to the next question here, I just wanted to we just got to show the people what I was kind of like really when this is what Zmiz sent me here. If I'm able to share it.
That's great.
I love it.
I love
see
that.
Me.
I love that your head's on two female wrestlers too.
Hey, I look good there. Look at that.
I can't. Oh my god, I can't get over that. Oh jeez.
No disrespect to any of the four competitors in there. It was all in fun and games. Not.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be Zmiz if it wasn't me like that.
So we're going to go ahead, and I'm actually in a position here to kind of show some photos here next. So this right here is taken from a show you had recently in Fairmont City, Illinois, for the first responders. Of course, you see the Lucha Libres here, and I believe is that Sweet Puppy Papachulo. If I got that wrong, I am so sorry. But
Sweet Popeye. Yeah.
yeah, I was just say Sweet Poppy here, and
Yes.
we got Mr. P.T. Beckham, who's made his return to SICW, and apparently has a big bone. He keeps
Big way.
Yeah, big way. And then of course we got Big Kowalski and Flash Flanagan there in action. Then of course we've got Attila Khan and Sheik Prater, tearing up somebody from Limb is usually here. So big night for them here in Fairmont City. And just Herb, what do you think a professional wrestling show needs in order to make a fundraiser a success for whoever you're putting that on for?
Well, I think the first thing that makes it successful is the promotion has to be honest with the organization. And that's kind of what I do when I get invited to come to a meeting when they want to know about raising one. I mean, this afternoon, I'm working on a huge one that will take place probably early as March of next year. And I mean, I just, and I can't say a lot about it right now, but I mean, they've called and they're really serious. They actually showed up, members of the organization showed up at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds show and actually called their a couple of their other board members to come down halfway through the night when most of the matches were over to say, hey, get down there and take a look at this. We need to do a fundraiser like this. And I mean, it would be another off the chart one, but I told them that night sitting there that, it takes work on the organization's part. I can lead the horse to the water, but I can't make him drink it. But I'll provide you with all the tools you need to go out and make it successful. And if I don't think I can help you raise funds, then I'm not going to do that, because if I don't make you a successful event, then you're not going to want us back. And I think that's why we go back to the Millside, Illinois, and the Fairmont cities and places like that have us come back. I mean, Sandoval High School was I ran that area, not right in Sandoval back in the day, but, Centralia down to Mount Vernon, all the way down into White County. We ran that entire circuit 3-4 nights a week. Tony Costa and I did, God rest his soul. And those were repeat customers also, for the Lions clubs, for the JC organizations. But, we were always honest with them. We didn't go in and give them any false hopes. We definitely told them, said, look, if you go out and if you do this, you will be successful. If you don't, then come the night of the show, you're going to be wondering why your members didn't go out and do it. So you got to be honest. In this business, more so than anything, it's all you have is your reputation. If you lose that reputation, you might as well go find something else to do, because it will stick with you forever.
Right. Exactly. Z, I think I've got you.
Yeah, I was playing with the lighting. Sorry, it was terrible. In the recent years, you've put on these huge shows with legends and all these superstars and wrestlers from around the areas. Is there a show in particular that stands out to you as probably one of your favorites in the recent years?
They're all good shows that I've enjoyed promoting, enjoyed booking them. And, when you can have, and I'll use that one last October as an example, when you have 11 of those legends in, it speaks quality of what your product is. Or if I think back to probably the highlight one would have been the Fox Theater. The only show was ever produced there. Bruiser Brody, Kamala, the Ugandan Giant, Gentleman Chris Adams, the Fantastics. We had the small people on there. We can't call them midgets anymore, but Lord Littlebrooks people were there. Pressure Blackwell was on that card. When you put that kind of talent back in the day, those always stick out in you. Or you go out to the Fairmount Park racetrack when you have Ox Baker against Bruiser Brody, Nard the Barbarian against Bruiser Brody. There's just too many of them um, to say what would be the top, because I'm like you guys. I've been a fan all my life. That I can remember watching it, and then to be able to chase that dream and catch it. I could only hope that everybody who's wanted that dream could catch it. Um, but again, I tell everybody I was a young man at the right time at the right place, getting to meet Larry Matisek and then being introduced to Sam Muchnick, and it just snowballed after that. I mean, you can see their pictures there behind me. Uh, Sam, Larry, and Bruiser Brody. Those three gentlemen introduced me to so many of the top talents in the business that I'll never forget what they did for me. And then, when I'm out in Cauliflower Alley a week ago, and Jerry Jarrett, I'm sure you guys have heard that name, comes up, calls me over and introduces, and I've never met him. I was only in the office at Sam's office when he'd be talking to Jerry on the phone, but he calls me over and says, my grandson has told me who you are, and I know all about SICW, and I want to tell you that I have a debt of gratitude to this day to Sam Muchnick, because when me and Nick Goulas, and I'd heard this story before from Sam, when Nick Goulas and the Jarrett had a feud and were splitting, Sam picked Jerry Jarrett to go into the NWA instead of Nick Goulas. And so, I mean, that was another, I think, was a great treat for me. And then they go in and do a seminar, and I didn't even attend that seminar, but Gary Jackson and Texan and those guys were all in there, and they come out and say, heck, they're in there talking about you, Jerry Jarrett and his grandson. So those are highlight moments that I'll never forget, because they've meant something to me in the business.
Yeah, and like you say, you've touched on with the because I was getting ready to bring up here that about a couple weekends ago you were out in Las Vegas at the 56th annual reunion of the Cauliflower Alley Club, and we actually got a treat for some of these guys here. We just want to pretty good, with. These are guys that are out here. Of course, that's the legendary manager of the Four Horsemen. That's Mr. James J. Dillon. There with you. I mean, with James there. You guys go back a little ways, and I'm sure it's really good reuniting with him yet again.
Dear friend, love JJ. His daughter Pam. When you have Pam and Darla and Barbara Goodish out there. And JJ always steals the show, as I tell him. But we, just to be able to sit down around the table and have a few social drinks with a guy like JJ and pick his brain. Because I'm still learning in this business, even though everybody says, oh, you've been in it for almost 50 years. What else can you learn? I'm going to tell you, when you can sit there and talk to a JJ Dillon or a Kevin Sullivan or a Haku or people like that, or B. Brian Blair, our CEO, president of Cauliflower Alley, these guys have got stories after stories after stories, and I never get tired of hearing them, even if I hear them over. Terry Funk is one who can tell you the stories over and over, and each time he tells them the same way, and each time I just laugh and smile because they're so interesting. Or a guy like Bob Orton Jr., but yeah, JJ is a dear friend, and we'll be seeing him here in the near future back in SICW.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I say, here's guys over here with us last year with that big Belle Claire Fairgrounds, the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky and Robert there.
Two great guys.
Well, and what you didn't see in that, the picture they took is they had their hands over my face. That's usually what their trademark is. When they say, come here, we want to take a picture with you. And then they take and put their hand up in front of your face. But great guys. Ricky and Robert are they were out there and they got an award. So yeah, they've been around a long time, and you'll be seeing them back in SICW also, because they loved it when they've been in, and because we treat them right. I roll out the red carpet for these legends, and over the years I've only had a couple of guys that gets mad and say, why don't you pay us more money instead of paying these old timers this and that, and if they catch me in a bad mood, I tell them, I say, you really ought to be paying me to let you come in and sit in the locker room and pick their brains, because if you don't, that's shame on you, because they're a wealth of knowledge, And as I said, anybody that's lacing up a pair of boots out there nowadays is just building on that foundation that guys like the Rock and Roll Express built. And, they need to be taking advantage of them when they're in here.
Right, exactly. And what I was going to touch on here is what you said a bit ago, with the statement that I will state that if you stop learning in this business, you need to get out. I mean, would you agree?
That goes back to that old saying: if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You got
Exactly.
it. Very true statement. And that's what I said. I've learned something. To sit there, stand there, and talk with Jerry Jarrett. I mean, and I've had, I used all of the guys from down there: Tojo Yamamoto, Gypsy Joe, Frank Morrell, people like that used to come up and work for us. But to hear the guy who put those matches together years ago, and the way he just talked and praised what we're doing here still locally makes it all worthwhile. And I just can't say enough for the guys, and I'm learning something every day in this business. And I think, Miz, you said it just right. If you're not learning, you're sleeping.
Exactly. And of course, you mentioned Barbara Goodish here. Of course, the widow of Bruiser Brody here, and always good to see her. And of course, you developed a very good friendship with her over the years. With that, known her for a very long time.
Great lady. She's always a phone call away. We talk weekly, and I mean, if I ever need her, I call her, and she answers. If I need her to come in, she's here every May, usually when we do the Bruiser Brody Memorial. And that was kind of my pledge to her back in 1988 when Brody got murdered, that as long as I was still breathing, that he would not be forgotten. And I think we've done pretty good by keeping that out there. So again, he was so good to me, taught me so much of the business. And Barbara actually had let the cat out of the bag on a podcast that she done a couple of months ago. And I never had mentioned it to anybody. Frank and I was getting ready to do a partnership, and she released that on a podcast. And boy, my phone started burning up from people. And then I called Barbara and I said, what are you doing to me? And she said, well, people need to know how close you and Frank really were. And but again, that's she gets to tell what she wants to. I just love her dearly, and my wife and her are good friends, and they farmed her, Darla Staggs, and like I said, JJ's daughter Pam. When you're out there with those three, it's all wrestling related, and they're good people, and I just love them dearly.
Everything should be wrestling related.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
No biasy.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
How about this with you and JBL? How was that interaction, Herb?
Well, how would you like to see him in SICW?
Oh my God,
dude, I would love that.
Yeah,
I would mark out. That's one of my favorites. JBL is one of my heroes.
And I don't know if you guys have ever had time to catch him and Jerry Briscoe's podcast that they do, but man, it is off the chart, and just down to earth guy. And him and another good friend of mine, James Beard, referee for many, many years, personal friends with JBL. In fact, he's probably in the background there somewhere because those two are almost inseparable. But yeah, just a great guy. And in fact, I can tell you the group that we're working on for that March show, you may see JBL on that one.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
One of the most underrated bad guys in professional wrestling, right there.
I loved his his stock market gimmick.
Oh my, that stuff was amazing.
I loved it coming out in the limo, the big Texas Longhorns, and
from the chains, from being part of the APA with another great legend, Farouk, and then just going on that run as JBL. I cannot say how much I enjoy his work.
Yep. So it was good catching up with him, and another guy, because Jerry Briscoe is a good friend of ours, and of course Jerry talks about SICW all the time. He always tells a story about how I still owe him a steak dinner because we had him in one time and we said we're going to take him out, and we ended up taking him a Steak and Shake, and he tells that story about But
It's
that was
kind of a
Larry.
steak.
That, yeah, well,
steak and a
that was
shake.
Larry's. Well, it was after a show, and that was the only place open. And him and his son Wes tell that story all the time. But yeah, you still owe me a steak, So yeah,
That's that's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is awesome.
You
And
should give him
how
like
about-
one of those doggy steak chew toys. That's what you should give him as a
There
you
you
know.
there
what
you
about-
go.
and what about this here with your daughter Jessica here with meeting Rey Mysterio?
Well, yeah, my daughter, who has been my caretaker for the wife and I for almost a year now, I had her go with us because when you get older, you're not as sharp as you used to be, and so she's as smart as a tack and the sharp as one, and so. But while we were sitting there the last night at the banquet, she said, "Dad, I've had such a great time." She said, "But you know what would really top the trip off is if I could get a picture with Rey Mysterio." And I said, "Well, come on, let's go get one." And so we did. And Rey is such a humble individual, and if time would allow, he'd just stay there and take pictures with everybody there. Great guy.
That's
And
awesome.
I was glad my daughter got to get that.
That's awesome. And you mentioned something about you and Jerry. So here it is.
Oh,
Right
look
here.
at that.
And right there,
That shirt is amazing.
there's the man right there.
I love that one.
And like I said, I that was in the nostalgia room there at the Cauliflower Alley, and he was sitting there with his grandson, and they had some display, and I had identified. They said it was. I don't know if the word authenticate would be the proper term. I was able to identify some papers that I had seen in Sam's office that they had copies of a letter, and that's when he actually called me over. And he gave me the motion finger. I was in the middle of the room, and I'd walked over there, and that's when he introduced himself to me and just began telling me how much he owed Sam Muchnick and how much he appreciated what SICW was continuing to do with the business. And so that really, touched me. And I mean, there's a guy right there that's done everything. I mean, if I could have sat there and talked with him all night, I'd still been there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess his son Jeff did okay. I mean, he was all right.
Well, as I said,
Dad's better than son, in my opinion.
as I said earlier, some people like Pepsi, some people like Coke.
I'll just say no. I mean, Jeff Jarrett did a lot in this business, and
Yeah.
Miz does a better stroke.
Oh my goodness.
But back in the day, when the territories was out there, there was problems, but that's why a guy like Sam was the peacekeeper, as they called him. When Jerry and Nick Gulas was having their issues, Sam was the one that intervened there and said, "Okay, if you're going to make me choose, somebody's not going to be happy," and that's where you have to have somebody, and of course. These young people that are running these promotions now have no clue of what territorial wrestling is all about. They can say they do, but they have no clue. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. It's just one of the things that's my pet peeve is when you hear somebody try to make others believe that they do. And I hear these guys, I had somebody call me tonight and say, "Hey, there's somebody on a podcast talking about when Ric Flair walked down the stairways at South Broadway Athletic Club." Well, in all my years, which was over 40 years at South Broadway Athletic Club, I assure you, Ric Flair never walked down the steps at South Broadway Athletic Club. It just never. There was a guy named Rick Fury that tried to play like he was Ric Flair. Nice guy, but Ric Flair never was there. They tried saying that the ring at their training center was the old Wrestling at the Chase ring. No, that ring was scrapped out because Larry Matisek and I had the opportunity to take it. And being young and dumb back then, I wished I would have. I should have carried that thing out of there by myself, but that would have been a nostalgic piece to have, but it actually got scrapped out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, as far as, when we're seeing all these pictures and with all these experiences here, tell the fan base here on the show, the club's purpose and how they can even be part of this great society.
Well, the club just celebrated its 56th reunion, and it was started years ago by Mike Mazurki. Um, it was actually for not only it started for actors and boxers and wrestlers, and it's more geared towards now for the wrestling industry. But B. Brian Blair is the CEO, president of the organization, and if you don't know who B. Brian Blair is, you've been living under a rock. But it's an organization that helps our men and women in the business, our workers, when they fall on hard times. And I think it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. If you're a promoter, if you're a worker, announcer, referee, part of a ring crew, if you have anything to do in the business and you fall on those hard times, I have seen this organization help so many of our men and women that it's unbelievable. They have a benevolent association also. Darla Staggs is the person who handles those claims, and she at least screens them and makes her recommendation to the executive board. What I tell the young guys and girls now, it's like a supplemental insurance policy. If you fall on hard times and you've got a mortgage payment due or you've got a car payment due and, you're out of work for some reason or whatever, and for $25 a year or $300 for a lifetime membership award, that's a small price to pay to know that you've got somebody out there that's going to help you. Because sooner or later, if you stay in this business, and if you've got your heart into it, you're going to suffer one of those injuries. And again, I challenge anybody to, if you can't afford $25 a year, then you probably shouldn't be in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
It's there.
Cool.
It's
true
there,
statement, though.
It is. It's true. I mean, I know some workers right now that are going through some injuries that, and I take my hat off to them. They go out there and work and do these shows, and then they wake up and Monday morning comes around, they got to go to work, and it's kind of like, oh, I can't go to work, and then all of a sudden a week's went by and I haven't been able to work a whole week. And then all of a sudden you go to the doctor and you've got a fracture or you got something that's going to keep you off another month or two. Boy, it'd be nice to know that $25 that I paid, that I could call and maybe get me a few dollars to help me get through till I get back to work and get caught up on my paychecks,
Right.
And in a group, it's just in the fans. And I tell the fans too, if you are being entertained by these men and women that go out there and bust their behinds to bring you pleasure at these shows, I challenge them to be a part of that extended family, because as a fan, you can become a member. And wouldn't it be good to know that if you're that fan, and there's so many of them out there, and the ones that come to my mind, the Menders, Larry Wolf, and people like that are all these shows, it would make them feel good to know that if one of the guys that they go and watch on the weekends that bring them pleasure, that got hurt and was going to be out of it for a while, that $25 that they joined was going to help them and their family out. So that's why I push it so hard. And all of the members, all of the executive board, none of them get paid. They all volunteer their time. This last year, I took over Carl Lauer. You remember Carl? I know he was a state inspector in Missouri. I took over his role as the ambassador and communicator, they call it. And my job is basically to try to promote because I do it anyway. I mean, they didn't need to give me a title, because I think that much and believe that much in the organization. I promote it every day.
Oh, well, since you basically took my next question.
I'm reading your notes.
With that being said, actually is, what are some of the good times to remember having with him, Carl, that is, and does your new role make you more involved in the wrestling industry as a whole? Also, side note question, how does one go about getting involved in that? Is there a website, a thing? Because I know for myself right now, I'm ready to put $25 in and I need that link so I can post it on We Talk Wrestling tomorrow. I mean,
Yep.
yesterday.
Cauliflower Alley Club.org. You can go on there under membership, and it's real easy to do. And if you have any trouble, I've published my number out there, 618-719-1034. If somebody needs any help, I'll be more than glad to help them, because, we've got a big membership drive, and, there is some talk and rumors amongst some of the executive board that they may have to increase the annual fee and the lifetime fee. So I'm really pushing that for people to become a member before, if that happens. I'm not saying it's going to. I don't have a vote on that. Like I said, my role is just to try to get the word out there as the ambassador for the club. But and your question on Carl and I go way back. Carl, a lot of people didn't know, was one of the top promoters in California for many years. Was friends with all the greats, Andre the Giant, you name them, he had them all out there. One of the founding members, I always razz him, of the Cauliflower Alley, because he was around it for so many years. And it was a shock when he left us. In fact, I talked to him the week that he passed away. He'd actually hurt his hand on a fence, and man, it was a shocker. But I loved, he was another guy you'd sit around and we could tell story after story. Him and Harley Race was in partners for a while with the business, and him and Harley were great friends. And I miss Carl, because I could pick up the phone and call him, and just like now. And he always told me, he said, Herb, he said, when I retire, when I get out of it, I want you to step in my shoes. And I said, well, my feet may be big, but I'll never fill those shoes, because he did so much work for the Cauliflower Alley. He was friends with Red Bastien, with Nick Bockwinkel, and he was always an integral part of Cauliflower Alley. So yeah, he'd be a hard man to replace. But like I said, they've got Barbara. They have an advisory board. But if you ever you got to put it on your bucket list to go out to Vegas, because it's a well-oiled machine. It takes a lot to put it together, even though it's only 3-4 days out of the year. But they've already started working on next year's show, picking the dates, and then finding out if they're going to go back to the same hotel, or they were at the Gold Coast. Years ago, they were at the Plaza where we were at this year, and then they moved to the Gold Coast, and now they came back to the Plaza, and there were some questions on if they're going to stay there or not, but time will tell when they're going to have a board meeting Tuesday, and so some of that may get worked out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we know number 57 is going to be in the bag. We just, I guess, just got to find out where it's going to be, at least for next year. And we've had a request, to put this once again, guys. It's caulifloweralleyclub.org.
That's what I was just doing. I was just posting We Talk Wrestling.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys helping get the word out there, because you guys get a lot of followers, and I know both workers and fans, and I'm telling you, if you want to feel good about it, just and these fans do, they go and they support these workers, and to know that, hey, somebody got hurt that they really like, and if they and again, we keep everything confidential unless that person says you can use my name for this or that, but nobody knows other than like I said, Darla Staggs is the benevolent person who screens the calls, and then of course she makes her recommendation to the executive board. But I've got I know personally of people that has called me and said, man, they've helped me dearly, and I can't thank them enough, and that's what it's all for. And so if we could get my goal is to get another 1,000 people signed up on this thing, and all over the country. I got promoters calling me from all over, and fans from all over the country calling and wanting to know how to do it. And I hope they follow up. I hope they didn't waste my time of calling me and talking to me and then don't do it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that would be something. So I think someone within the show had posted what do you because someone wanted to mention about the whenever there was a promoter around here that was first getting his feet wet with Mr. Frank Reed, Frank Root. Um, so, uh, sorry, I was just reading something here, which apparently, guys, let's keep the energy positive for whatever else here. We're not going to. If I see anything in here, it's not going to be posted up here. So just to let you know. So, whatever you guys got to hear, this is all positive energy. But as far as like, can you tell me the story of how the Abdullah and Brody match came about? And I guess, did you actually stay around to watch that match on that show whenever Frank Reed was having his first show as a promoter back in March of '88?
No, I didn't stay around. Frank, Frank's a guy who has been around a long time. And of course, I know a lot of workers, probably a lot of them work for him. He started off by coming to my shows at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds. He was tied up with a church organization back then, and they would bring a small church bus every month on a Thursday night. And sometimes there'd be 20, 25 people from his church and congregation that he belonged to, and they'd reserve seats, and my wife would always reserve the same seats for him. They would be right at ringside. So, and he's told that story over and over many times. And Frank and I have been friends. I've went to some of his shows that he's invited me to. I don't think since back then I can remember him ever being at any of my shows, but he used to be a regular at all of our shows. But him and I just have difference of philosophy on what the business should be. I've always, I did the same thing. Tony Costa and I ran everything from the Boot Hills of Missouri all the way up to the Indiana border when we was running head to head with Dick the Bruiser. We'd run all the way south down to Carmi, Illinois, down to Fairfield, Illinois, right across from Evansville, Indiana. And so we kind of marked that as our territory. And then as years went on and we got older, I didn't want to be making all those car trips. And so I kind of just built a home base. And if they call me, I'll go. But I'm not going to go out like a band of gypsies beating on this organization's door and begging them to let me come and do a show. I'm not going to do that because I stay busy enough on everything else I do. Even though wrestling is a passion to me and I want to help organizations if they want to raise funds, that I don't have to solely depend on wrestling. I do it because, one, I want to help organizations. But the Larry Matasek is the one that actually booked that match for Frank with Brody and Abdullah after we had already done it. We used to work them all over the place. But no, I did not stay there that night because it was not going to be a good turnout.
The first show's not going to be a great turnout. I mean, come on. I mean,
well, you can't go out there and the opening match do the things that you want your main event to be doing, and that's
right.
kind of what happens. And I believe it or not, I mean, a lot of the guys, and Rick, I think Ruby, I think you worked for Frank before, and there's not too many guys that are still out there working that can't say they didn't work for Frank. Yeah.
I worked for him actually.
But I just think that, when you're in the business, you have your thoughts and your ideas, how you do things. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for Frank, even though there's a lot of guys that don't. But that's their personal opinion. I don't agree with the way he does business, but that's my opinion. He may not like the way I do business. But I just think that life is too short to have drama. And all I want to do is I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect what Larry Matasek and people like Tony Costa and I, because Tony was a big part of what I built, that he helped build. And I will do whatever's in my power to keep the tradition and the legacy of doing it what I consider is the right way, that others may consider it's the wrong way. Believe me, I have this conversation with people all the time that Well, Herb, this is 2022. You got to get out of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And well, first of all, I'm going to be 70 years old, and nobody's going to tell me I got to get into the modern times because I'm old. But guess what? Old still works. And I prove that each and every show. I'm not drawing 30, 40 people. You know,
But you're also good with. I'm going to give you props right now as being the younger one here through this and still learning from each and every one of the people I encounter. And from what I've seen on the outside, you do a really good job of melding in the new with the old and trying to keep that balance without losing your roots. And that's what people need to respect about you, in my opinion. That's all I need to say. Like that, you do a really good job of molding it. So I appreciate you for doing that for me being a wrestling fan from the old to the new.
well, and I appreciate that comment. That means a lot because stop and think what it would be like if that didn't happen. You know, history. Everybody says, well, why, when will wrestling at the Chase come back? And I'm the first one that says it will never come back. And yes, Billy Corgan's been there twice, but if it's so important to Billy Corgan, why has he only been there twice? How long has he owned the NWA now? So, and I told all this, you got to know what the NWA stood for in order to capitalize on it. Means otherwise you want to realize.
Did his mic go out?
I think you did. Herbert, I think your microphone went out.
You
have something to say?
we lost you for a bit there, actually.
Yeah, so you were talking about how Billy Corgan has only been back for twice, but I don't know if he's just trying to just make the the NWA pay-per-view at the Coruscant like an annual thing and just I don't know if he's just trying to establish any type of any importance to that, but go ahead and reflect on your statement on that again, if you would, please.
Yeah, I just think that what Billy's doing, he could be doing it more because there's still a lot of St. Louis Midwest wrestling fans that want to see the product that he's got out there now. But the NWA was such a powerful organization, and it was centered in St. Louis. And for him to want to run it once a year is a disservice to what the NWA stood for. I mean, I think he could turn that into, if he wanted to, and I've told him this, if you want to know what the NWA stands for, that first show that he had, the NWA, what was it, 73? Where he brought Ric Flair in. To me, I was there, was not what it should have been. If it would have been me, I'd have had Terry Funk, I'd have had Dory Funk, I'd have had Ted DiBiase, I'd have had Baron Von Raschke. Anybody who I could have got a hold of that could have made that trip in, because those were the nuts and bolts of the NWA back in the day. Ric Flair, and I love Rick, but we all know Rick. We know what he can do, what he can't do. He got in the ring. He mentioned Sam Muchnick's name one time. He mentioned Bob Orton and Randy Orton, which I was really glad to see. And the only thing he had to say about Sam Muchnick was he was a good payoff man. Well, anybody in the business knows that, but Sam was more than that. Sam was the peacekeeper. He was the one that held that NWA together for over 41 years. Even when he wasn't the president of the organization, those guys were still calling him at midnight saying, hey, we've got this going on. When Buddy Rogers didn't want to give up the title, it was Sam that was saying, oh, yeah, he's going to give it up one way or the other. And they tricked him in to a match with Lou Thez because he kept on dodging them. And they billed it for somebody else. And when Buddy Rogers got in the ring, Thez flops the hood back off his coat and puts his hand out and says, we'll either do this the easy way or the hard way. That was Sam to put that all together. So Sam was the godfather of professional wrestling. I'll argue that with anybody. But again, it's the NWA. I wish Billy all the luck in the world. I've talked to him a few times over the tapes that I've got. There's some people out there that says that I don't own the tapes. I've got a paper from Larry Matisek. I got a paper from Larry Matisek's wife. And guess what? I've got the tapes. So if nothing else, possession's 9/10 of the law. So, him and I've been talking about them. That's why I use them on our weekly show, and I will continue to use them. I've got the paperwork where we sold the use to them to a Canadian firm. Fight TV used them. We sold the rights to use them to High Spots. I've got all that paperwork. I got all the documentation. So if somebody wants to argue that point, my attorney's name is Charlie Swart out in Belleville, Illinois. And, he'll be more than glad to talk to any of them.
Right. And so before I get on to my next question here, apparently we've got some thirsty individuals that were on here, but now that are no longer. But I'm just saying, if you're going to represent yourself as somebody from a columnist or writing, it'd be best if you at least make a 3 count on your followers and subscribers.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
You mean there's somebody being negative?
Yeah.
No, not in wrestling.
Not in wrestling, yeah. Even on a late Sunday night, we're trying to keep a positive flow. Someone wants to stir the pot before somebody wants to go to bed. But,
Well, but the thing is those are the people that I enjoy, because usually they're ignorant to the business. And they don't have the intestinal fortitude to say it in public. And it's always easy to blame things on a dead guy, or because if they can't be there to defend themselves. So yeah, I have there's no question out there that I'm afraid of.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's I could bring it up, but like you said, I'm dressed it up. I've taken out here because I don't want to, and I was probably going to post a number, but I honestly don't want the vibe to go away from where we have them right now. So
sure, that's the one thing, Rick. It's your show. You get to do what you want to.
That's right. And I'm going to keep the vibe going. If I wanted to, trust me, if I really wanted to raise some hell, I really could. But it's Sunday night, and we're easy now. We're trying to keep the positivity in the world of professional wrestling. So,
well, I don't want your ratings to go down either. So,
right.
Herb and I's friendship basically started off on a negative. It was about the Quincy show, actually, before the pandemic. But we ended up spending like 4 hours talking about wrestling. And
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I think I sat in my car on the phone for about 4 hours. We talked that night. Yeah,
we talked for a while that night.
Yeah.
So let's trigger back. I wonder if I could do this, because I think I could do this on just switching. Yes. I found an easy way to do this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about last weekend at the Beauclair Fairgrounds, with SACW returned with a big show with some legendary names and of course some great matches. And we're going to talk about the main event as well. Of course, here with Dan DeB Severn, who is now a Silver Fox, apparently now. I didn't know he went all gray, because I think the last time I seen him was like 4 years ago, and he was at the first ACW show in Bowling Green, and he had a little gray, but now he just let it all go. So, but good seeing Dan there, and legendary mustache. There you go. Right,
mustache rights for all.
And Loverboy Dennis Connery, one half of the original Midnight Express here.
What a great guy. I mean, if anybody who talked to him, and what I really enjoyed about him, he sat out there and watched all the matches basically over in a corner, and he just really enjoyed everything. And I hadn't had him in since 2012. And he's got a story. He almost passed away, and I know he told some of the guys, so I'm not speaking out of turn, but he was having some throat issues. Never smoked a day in his life, and went and got a checkup, and he ended up having throat cancer and had to take his voice box out. And so what a great story. And I'll tell you, he's on my top list of, if I get any influence with the Cauliflower Alley, I'd like to see him be honored out there because, they did that with Joyce Grable this year with her success story of the issues that she had with her medical problems, and what a sweet lady she is. We had her in a year ago, but Dennis is definitely a candidate to be recognized, not only for what he went through, but some of the greatest matches ever with him and Bobby Eaton, Midnight Express, and Jim Cornette against the Rock and Roll Express and the Road Warriors, and tore the house down.
Great tag team wrestling.
I mean, you want to talk about some of these guys that were probably one of the best heel tag teams around, and especially not just in the territories, but just around, because they had that chemistry. Even with Bobby and Dennis starting everything else, of course, Cornette in the play as well, with knowing what he needed to do and what spots and everything else. So, apparently I'm getting a call here.
We hear it.
You didn't even post the number yet, and they're calling.
Yeah, it's a repeat caller, so that's okay. We'll do this here. Why not?
Sure.
All right, you got the False Count Everywhere podcast. Who we got on the line?
Dun, 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 dun.
Hello,
Aaron
Aaron.
Wars is here.
Aaron.
Hi, Herb.
Hey, how are you, Aaron?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Herb.
Yeah. Aaron was at the show last week at Belle Claire Fairgrounds.
Yep, and little Jimmy as well.
Yeah, did you enjoy it?
We enjoyed it.
Good. We enjoyed having you there.
Hey, we had a burning question after talking to you last week. There, Aaron, I heard some rumors about little Jamie running up a bar tab. Were you able to get that taken care of?
Yes, he's taken care of.
The bartender wouldn't tell me what little Jamie was ordering, but I just said it was red and delicious. So that's all he told me. So, oh man. So what's on your mind tonight, Aaron?
Well, I was thinking about Legends, and I thought about Stone Cold Steve Austin coming like next year. So would it be great if that happened?
Isn't it funny that I just mentioned something about bar tabs and now I'm hearing something about Steve Austin?
It's a win-win for everybody.
I bet you Sandman can run up a higher bill, though. I'm just saying, because I've seen it.
Well, if I get Stone Cold, I'll have to have him drive the beer truck in. After all, Anheuser-Busch was the sponsor back in 1959, and they're still sponsoring SICW to this day.
Awesome!
Wow,
that's a fun fact. I didn't know that.
If you look at if you pull up that poster, you'll see SICW. When we have them on there, they do all of our printing for our posters, and then back in the early days, the drum roll of the show was sponsored by Anheuser-Busch.
Nice.
Yeah.
wow.
Or how about one of those original Bush Bavarian posters?
Yeah. I got one.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, he went and got a drink. I thought he was legitimately gonna pull one out. I was like, "How's he doing?
Oh my goodness.
I just remember seeing the Bush Bavarian in the intro to Wrestling at the Chase.
That's it. And if on our posters we have their logo on it, they make up our posters, and it was they were the sponsor.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, well, that would be awesome. And,
So when you talk about keeping the history and the legacy alive, we go way back.
Oh yeah,
Ingrained.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, Aaron, cool. I mean, that's definitely a good thought, and yeah, I mean, we'll talking of the show for next year at the fairgrounds, the big shows that is at the fairgrounds, because apparently, from what Herb said, is maybe SICW will be coming around to Belle Claire Fairgrounds a little bit more than just once a year. So, as a possible new home base. So that'll be pretty cool.
Such a great building.
Yeah.
The back building.
Awesome. All right. Aaron, you and little Jimmy, take it easy. Have a great week, and keep on listening. All right.
All
Thanks.
right.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one, Aaron.
Good night, Jim.
All righty. If I cut him off, sorry. I got that trigger finger. Like, okay.
One of those great fans we were talking about.
Yep, he was. I mean, he was there that night, and he brought some friends in with them, and like you said, just great wrestling action. Yeah, that's right. There you go. Belleville's own Bobby D. There you go. So
One and only.
So
speaking of Bobby D, we're going to be doing his fundraiser on November the 19th at the Citizens Park.
Oh yeah.
He actually said that earlier in the comments, and I missed it.
Yeah, well, I got it marked down to tell because Bobby's you talk about a guy that gives back to his community with those young kids, little devils, and so we're really honored to be asked to go back there, and I thank Bobby for helping put that all together.
Yeah. So how about we'll get to that here in a bit, but let's look at some of the action photos from Belclair Fairgrounds. We actually had the SICW ambassadorship on the line between the up and coming Brandon Beretta and of course the Canadian hero Sean Vincent. And apparently throughout the match they were battled into the crowd, and Mr. Beretta threw Mr. Vincent into some chairs, and I'm just kind of wondering, he's off his feet here, and there's a fan sitting right behind. I mean,
he's so calm about it too. The fan just seems so relaxed back. You can't see much of him. Sean's in the way.
Yeah, Sean's in the way, but no, there's somebody there who's like, oh, here comes the Canadian on my lap now.
This is a great photo.
Well, I don't think you've seen the last of those two. Brandon Beretta, a graduate of the Ace Wrestling Academy, and of course Sean, as I've told people, is somewhere between those two ears where there's supposed to be a brain went somewhere else over the last few months, and we'll just have to see how this saga plays out.
Oh yeah, it's definitely far from over. Even though Sean, let's just say he walks a little heavy-footed on the right side. Let's say, yeah. So there's some shady business going on with that White Soul boot that he's got on his right foot.
Kind of reminds me of the old Grapplers. You guys remember the Grapplers tag team?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, they used to. Well, you weren't old enough, but
I was like, I don't remember those.
But they used to have that same
Homework.
problem. They used to have that same problem with a foot being sore from time to time, and they had to load it up. It's funny how history repeats itself.
Yeah, it is funny. What about Superstar Steve and Sweet Poppy here? I mean, Sweet Poppy here, boy, he's definitely a sensation, and a new sensation inside an SICW ring. Definitely a new flavor to add to the mix and what's on the talent. And taking on Superstar Steve, quite the consummate and the veteran.
I love Superstar Steve.
Yeah, great worker Superstar Steve is.
Oh yeah, and this young man's a good addition to the locker room. It's in fact he just left to go back to Mexico, and he'll be back for November for the TV tapings. And but he actually contacted me the night before the Fairmont City show, and it was kind of like a message sent from heaven, because he got recommended to me from a promoter down in Tennessee that had advertised that needed some boys to come down for a show. And when this young man contacted him, he said, well, that's pretty far for you to come. And he said, why don't you check out Herb Simmons, And so he reached out to me on Messenger, and then he put his 62-year-old grandmother on the phone with me, who was good friends with the Hart Foundation, Stu Hart and his wife. And so we had a nice conversation, and I said, hey, what are you doing tomorrow night? Because Fairmont City, about 90% Hispanic community, and they were doing a taco VIP bar and margarita at 5:00 that evening, and they wanted a luchador match, and so I had El Diablo and another luchador, but I thought this young man, I said, can you speak Spanish? And so we're on the phone, and he starts speaking Spanish to me, and I said, "Are you doing anything tomorrow?" So he shows up, and he stole the show in Fairmont City. I mean, he was out there. He brought smiles to those kids' face and their parents, and because some of those young children only speak Spanish, and this young man was able to communicate with them and had a great time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so and from what I've seen is that they've had a really good match as well. And what about this? Let's talk about this because we mentioned this lightly just with the Texan, but Gary Jackson and the Big Texan are new SICW Tag Team Champions. So
What a combination that is. Of course, the Night Train. I guarantee you has not aged a day since he started working for me. This guy is, and he can still go with the best of them. And it's just an honor that any promotion that don't want a Gary Jackson in their locker room, shame on them. And of course, the Big Texan's been with us for a long, long time, and he's actually been on a roll. And he's developed that what I call is kind of the lariat, Hansen lariat, because he has used that to win some matches, and they pulled off a big victory there at the Belclair Fairgrounds against Marla McDarby, who is by far him and his former tag team partner who was out on an injury, Sean Santel. I said for many years they were probably the most legit tag team in the Midwest. They didn't like wrestling singles. That's why they called them the professionals. And but they lost to the Texan and Gary Jackson, and so that's who our SICW tag titles holders are right now.
yeah, and I may add that this is back-to-back Belclair Fairground shows where Gary Jackson has won a title.
Yep.
Because Dopamine.
Who did he lose the one? I mean, win the one from? Or
I wasn't going to bring that up now. That's
Yeah.
Hmm.
you're opening up that old wound.
That's still a little sore, man. But I overlook that. I don't live in the past, but I'm like,
I went there to support you, and you failed me, man.
But I got to tell you, that night sticks out in my mind because when you came out of that ring and landed on that apron, I thought, oh my gosh, or as they say, OMG, because you hit like a ton of bricks. And I thought, oh man, that had to shake all the way up to your ears.
oh yeah, well, it's. I guess that's what I get for being big, but
But it's a good thing he was,
yeah.
Man.
I mean, once you get over that hill, and per se, once you start going downhill, it's going to go quick. And
yeah, there's
so
gravity has no brakes.
no, it sure don't. It sure doesn't. But this tag, I'm looking forward to seeing what this tag team can do.
Well, I'm looking for Texan next Saturday night against Sheik Jake Prater.
Yeah,
Ugh, that's gonna hurt.
It's going to be a great match, I think.
that's going to be a chop fest. I'm calling it right
Well,
now.
Ever since Prater has came back and then got tied up with Stephen E. and Attila Khan, he's reminding me more of the original Sheik each and every time I see him out there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big shoes.
It is big shoes. And then we're going to talk about here with this. Speaking of Sheik Prater, here we are with the Barbarian choking down. I mean, this is the main event. I've only been able to get a few shots in here, but we're going to roll through these here. The match started outside the ring and didn't even get a bell until all four guys had to get in. And by that time, Attila Khan had already spilled blood so bad. It was horrible. But yeah, so we're looking at Ming here. I guess he was trying to get out at this point.
Yeah, Stephen E. had captured the key. And that's why he was trying to. He really wanted to get his hands on Stephen E. But there's a lot of beef in that ring, and that's why I said. And of course, that was Stephen E. when he unlocked the door to go in and.
Yeah,
tried to do a little damage there, but
but we see the start and we see the finish.
Wrong person.
Yeah, wrong person.
Yeah.
So
I think we got Big Texan in here actually
yeah,
talking.
possibly.
He's-
Oh, he's plans for
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
gonna
he
be
does.
it's gonna be a match. I can tell you.
That's two
Yeah.
big dudes hitting each other. Ooh.
Yeah, I wish I would have got the picture, but the match did end with, and it was kind of sweet revenge for Haku because he lost the last year against Attila, trying to get the SICW Classic Championship, and so he came back here along with the Barbarian and won this tag team cage match. As you can see, lights came up, people started going home. You see Attila here. You know, he was kind of like that even before the battle, and so he was even pouring even more. And of course, Jake got busted on that cage as well. So,
And Barbarian threw him into the center post of that cage, and man, it just echoed throughout that whole building.
oh yeah, like I said, this is not a light cage by any means, guys. It's not, and so these guys, boy, let me tell you, it's just like I just wonder if because I looked at that canvas too and was like, oh my gosh, if you guys are going to try and clean and pre-treat this is going
No, we already got the new one in. That one was we will not be using that one. And they went through the table too before the match even started.
Yeah, they went through tables. I mean, they just Prater and Khan went after these guys as they were coming to the ring. So, and the battle went on for at least a good 5-6 minutes before they all four got in, and then the official bell started, and then even at that point it lasted about 13 minutes. So these guys were roughly about 20 minutes going at it with one another. So
yeah, there wasn't a disappointed fan that walked out of there that night. I mean, like I said, when you have the Faces of Fear in there, and then, like I said, the new Devastation Incorporated, that was the main event.
Yeah. So out of that entire day and night, is there anything that stood out to you on that card? Like any match, any event that happened, or
just we've had a busy 6 weeks.
yeah.
We had the Fairmont City show that Saturday, and then that's the next day, that Sunday, we left for Vegas.
Oh yeah.
And then we come back from Vegas. We get back in town that Thursday, and then Saturday we had the Belclair Fairground match, and prior to that, it was just 6 weeks of. I think we had five shows plus TV, and keeping them all straight and getting them done. But I think the thing that sticks out is when you hear the fans talk about how great the show was, and that's why a lot of times at those shows I'll stand at the exit door and thank people for coming, and they'll say, "Boy, Mr. Simmons, just when we thought we had it figured out, you pulled a rabbit out of your hat." And I credit that to the guys in the locker room. I mean, you've talked about a lot of them there tonight, and there is a wealth of knowledge in that SICW locker room. Years of experience, Gary Jackson, that started off at a very young age, never left home without his gear in his car, because when he'd go to the shows, if they were short-handed, he'd be the first to volunteer and say, "Hey, I got my stuff with me," Dennis, Attila, trained by Harley Race, Superstar Steve Fender, trained by Harley Race. And then you got these young guys, P.T. Beckham, Jake Prater, that are making a name for themselves. It's just really good. The Big Texan, Bobby D. You put that knowledge in that locker room together, they can come up with a way to please that crowd, and they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Z.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
So recently we've had major wrestling companies dealing with personal issues that is affecting the whole locker room. what characteristics do you think a wrestler needs to keep a successful and healthy promotion going?
Boy, and that's a great question. But these guys have got to keep a positive attitude. As I said earlier, life is so short, and you got to cherish it each and every day. And what I see from a lot of these guys, they are letting the little trivia things bother them. They want to get on social media, and instead of posting the positive things that are going on in their locker room and in their shows, they're wanting to bash this one and bash that one, which it's a cancer. Then it just starts eating away. Ruby, you've been in many locker rooms, and you've been in SICW, and it wouldn't offend me if you told me, but you and I've had this conversation before. Our locker room is drama free. Guys come, and it's like a night off farm. They joke around, they rib one another, just like it was back in the day. When you sit around with guys and they start talking about how they used to rib one another, well, that's kind of what goes on in the SICW locker room. And I think they support each other. And I'm not saying nobody has problems. We've all had problems, but when one of the members of the locker room know that there's an issue, somebody's having maybe a family problem or something, they're the first to pick them up and say, hey, call me if you need something, if you need somebody to talk to. And boy, that goes a long way. And I think if they just learn to separate that, the fans, I think some of them do it because they want the fans to get on there and say, oh, we love you, you're the best in that. Well, a lot of times that paints the opposite picture, so I would say if I had the best thing to do is guys need to come in and for the promotion's sake, for the fans' sake, have a positive attitude, because you're there to entertain the fan.
Right. Absolutely. You've got to. And of course, like I said, what's been made is dedication, as of course, being dedicated to keeping the moral value inside the locker room, keeping the positivity of what people can help with that. And of course, it's be there for each other. Don't, it's been said a few times here, don't go into business for yourself. It's not all about you. So it's about the promotion. So, and I've seen that in years past, and it's
well, and there's some guys out there, Rick, that don't understand what going into business for yourself means.
Yeah.
As we've said in the business for a long, long time now, and it's none of our fault. The toothpaste is out of the tube, been out of the tube for a long, long time. But guess what? Doesn't mean we have to continue squeezing a tube. I tell people for 2.5 hours, I'm going to take those fans into a land of make believe or whatever it may be. They're not going to have to worry about the price of gasoline, milk, eggs, bread. Now they have to come back to reality after the show's over. But for 2.5 hours, I want them to sit there and cheer and boo and get into it. And as you've seen, that happens. Now, again, like I said, when they walk out, yeah, the gas is still $2, $3, $4 a gallon, whatever it is. And you got to realize that, but it's just nice to sit there.
$4.19 up here. God dang.
Yeah. So it's nice to watch them sit on the edge of their seats. It's nice to see them get up and cheer and get autographs. And, the last thing when you talk about somebody going into business for themselves is when they don't like the way a promotion has got plans to do. And as you know, we have a direction. We have a mission. I know where I want to be 6 months to a year from now. And it takes all of us to get there. And that's what we call reverse booking. And if everybody stays healthy and stays with you, then it works out fine. But then you have to have a plan B. And but for the most,
and a C and a D.
No, but if you go much past the B, then you got a problem. Or you got a locker room that's not working with you. And
I step back.
but you've got if you got a booker And that's probably one of the things that I hear the most of is that a lot of places don't know who's in charge. There's got to be a person in that locker room that is respected and knows what's got to be done. The same way in the ring, there's got to be a general in the ring, and that's usually the veteran. Um, and if guys could just wrap their hands around that, it's not always about them. It's about, let's go out there and make the fans go home wanting more. Literally, after we do our show, wherever it may be, I'm not hot even out of the building, and people are posting pictures and they're sending text messages. I got a fan that sends me 60, 70 photos after a show and says, here, you can use these, and it's not just one fan, it's fans sending me videos. And so that tells me they're into it. They buy into what they're seeing, and they can't wait for more.
There you go. And so as far as let's talk about what's upcoming here for you. Of course, we've already mentioned about this coming Saturday night. You're back at the East Cauliflower Community Center for the big event, lumberjack match, main event for that, and then and of course with Sheik Prater and Big Texan, and of course the TV taping the day after the follow. Just got to bring your stub in from the night before, and you get in for free. And if you haven't attended a TV taping, to me, you're missing out on something when you don't attend a TV taping. It's if you go the night before, for that show. Why not go again to see some more action?
Well, and I think the TV taping gives them a lot more perspective of how it's all come together. It's like baking that cake, as I keep talking about. You got to have all the right ingredients, and we've got several people that have really got into just coming to the TV tapings. They may not be able to make it to the Saturday night show, but they'll come and pay what that ticket cost them for the night before just to be at the TV taping, because they're getting to see how it's all produced. And then they get to see it on a Sunday night, how the finished product comes out. And like I said, we're really proud of doing that. In fact, this coming Sunday, we're going to add another third camera, hard camera, for some different angle shots. And TV is a different animal when it comes to doing it. I remember talking to Leland Race when he first started doing TV down there, and he told me, and Troy, and he said, man, he said, Harley was right. He said, it's a different ball game. And it is, because, you got to be able to call your shots, and post editing is really fun to do, get the best shots you can. And then working with these social media platforms and then the TV people, because those have got to be timed out, as you know. They tell you how many minutes you got, and they don't want no dead air time. So that's why you have to stay on the guys and say, hey, this is your time, and this is what we got to have. And so it comes a lot more interesting directing it. And I really found that part, and I always did. I loved going to Channel 11 and sitting in there with Larry and watch how he would do the post editing of those matches, and I learned a lot from doing that from him.
Yeah, and so let's kind of talk about the next big fundraiser that you have going on, coming back to Belleville, but this time for the Belleville Little Dragons Wrestling Club on November 9th.
Devils. Yeah, the Little Devils.
Yeah, Little Devils. I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah, Little Devils.
Dragons. All right, I'm an idiot. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
You're not an idiot.
You suck.
Okay.
You jackass.
Sorry. I know it was right in front of me too, and I typed Dragons. I'm a moron. I actually had a long day. My day started. When did my day start? Around 4:45 this morning. So.
And I bet you woke up thinking about wrestling. If you didn't, something's wrong with you.
Oh my God. It takes me a while. I have to be my wake stage in order to do that. And sometimes it's sad to say I don't get my wake stage until I'm halfway to my destination where I'm driving, if I'm driving somewhere. So that's pretty bad. But with the Little Devils Wrestling Club, can can you tell us if you have any big things that you have in store or for the fundraiser that night?
Yeah, we're working on that, and of course, you're going to see Bobby D in action, and that's going to be on November the 19th at the Citizens Park in Belleville, Illinois. Like I said, Bobby's really good coaching those young kids. We were there a few years ago before the pandemic, and he had a packed house there. And like I said, we're still working on the matches for that, but they'll be released here shortly. The booker is putting all them together. Like I said, I've been wearing the booker out a little bit because of all the shows that we've had and trying to keep them all straight. And then we got a few guys that are out on some injuries that are getting taken care of. And but yeah, we're looking forward to November the 19th back in Citizen Park. We announced it at the fairgrounds the other night, and people were coming up and, hey, where can we get tickets at? So for Bobby's show there, I hope they come out and support it because it's for a good cause. It's for the young kids and that are out there working their tail off, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The torch is going to be passed on down the road here shortly from SICW, and I just hope that the legacy that all of you guys, I reckon you've been a big part of that since you've been helping us out. And when I talk to guys like the Searcher and Scotty Z and people like that, they share a lot of the same passion that I have for this business. And I think that's why they're going to be successful and be in it a long, long time if they continue with the concept of what they're trying to do. But yeah, Bobby's big show on the 19th, and then the year's winding down, and so 2023 will be getting kicked off here. Like I said, there's going to be some big announcements coming out for what we're going to be doing there shortly.
And if I can digress here, so February, March of next year, that will mark you 50 years in the business, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
February.
right? Or just
in February.
In February. Okay. My goodness. I know that's quite an accomplishment. I mean, hopefully that you feel a sense of accomplishment because, I mean, you've done quite a bit, once you first gotten in, of course, being introduced to Sam through Larry, knowing Larry Manisick all those years. And then, coming in. I mean, and there's some big events, and you announced actually, and I don't have artwork for this, but there is going to be there's a Shriners fundraiser. I believe that's going to be on March
25th. March 25th
next year. You've already got Mr. USA Tony Atlas, who's going to be there.
Yeah, and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr.
Oh my God, that ECW gimmick was
was horrible.
It was the most horrible thing.
Especially for a great legend like Tony Atlas. But at the same time, I liked him with Mark Henry. So let's look at the positive side of it.
Yeah.
Well, and the show at the Shriners is, they've it's a beautiful building, and at the temple, and they've actually wanted us there for many, many years, more so than I can almost count. But we're going to help them out because they want to raise some funds. And, like I said, Tony Atlas will be there along with Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. There may be a couple other surprises as we get closer, So, but yeah, that's a big one. And then, like I said, another one, and I can't announce it yet because it just kind of got dropped on me today. And, but if everything goes okay, a couple of pictures that we showed up there earlier tonight may be a part of that. And a lot of it depends on who's available and, things like that. Because these guys are staying busy too, a lot of these legends. And, it's you got to get them early and get them in there,
Yeah, I will say that when we did the panoramic view of that building at the Shriners, that was a large place. Gosh, how would you like to have that mostly packed? I mean, my goodness.
Well, and
It will be packed.
I've already talked to the town of Millstadt, the mayor from there. I was with him Thursday night. They want us back there. The Fairmont City's event was a big success for them. they raised quite a bit of money there, and goes for the first responders. And so again, that repeat business is what we like, because they know what it takes to go out there and make it successful. And then, of course, when you've got the organization pushing it, and then you've got the locker room coming in, giving a good product, that's when that phone rings and says, "Hey, when can you come back?" And we like that. And so the but it's been fun. And people say, "Well, is there anything that you would do different?" Boy, I'll tell you what, I can't think of it. It's been a hell of a ride for me. And the one thing I do want, and I'm working on that, is I want to put a little museum together to where I can display the collection of items that I've got, that I think people would enjoy coming and looking at. All those programs from the oldest one I got goes back to 1934.
Wow.
The results of all of the matches that took place on the Chase or at the Kiel or at the Checker Dome, I have all of that. I think I told you I acquired the Dick DeBruzer TV library of the TV tapes. So I've got all of them. I've just got to find a place that can download the TV 1-inch reels, But but I will. I'll find somebody that won't want an arm and a leg or my firstborn,
Right. Exactly. Wow. And
we need wrestling. We need wrestling museums.
Yeah.
That would make me the happiest kid ever again. And yes, I said kid because that's exactly what that would make me as a kid. If I saw a wrestling museum anywhere, I'd be like, that's where I want to go.
Well, and that's the thing. Nick Rednire and I, we've got that St. Louis Wrestling Portable Hall of Fame, and we're looking for a home for it. Which I'm tired of looking to try to find the right place. So as I told him, I think we're just going to concentrate on getting us a building that we can put it up in, and then like I said, I've got enough.
It was too funny not to share.
I've got enough pictures and collection stuff. I mean, I've been favoring an injury to my leg, and I've been using a cane that I got from Butcher Vershawn, and which I never thought I'd have to use. I was just going to keep it for my collection, but it's been helping me for the last week get around. So I got to put it back in the collection here shortly. My knee's feeling a little bit better. But
Well,
it's stuff
good.
like that I think people would get a kick out of coming in and just, open up some of them old programs and seeing Cowboy Bob Ellis against Johnny Valentine, or, Red Bastien against Rip Hawk, John Paul Henning, probably some names you guys don't even remember, but there's a lot of folks out there that it would trigger memories and say, "Oh, I remember Grandma and Grandpa talking about them." And so I think just having a place to where they could come in and view that kind of stuff. And then, when I had my barbecue stand, I used to have the tapes in there playing all the time. And people say, "Well, oh man, we didn't realize we were there for an hour." Yeah, your barbecued ribs are cold now. Let me warm them up for you.
I wouldn't leave.
You said you wouldn't leave.
No, he would have to put a cot in the back. I'd have to work there and everything, clean dishes or something.
Yeah, I had Harley. I don't know if I ever told you guys on the last show. I had Harley Race come in and do an autograph sign on a Saturday afternoon, and I literally had a lot of the photos and had a TV in there, and we would play the Wrestling at the Chase tapes and any other tapes that I've got, because I've got a lot of the Ron Eric stuff. And Harley came in that day, and I mean, they were lined out the door on the street waiting to get in to get his signature. And we were busy, selling barbecue, and I happened to be standing at the counter, and I noticed that Harley was sitting there looking up at the TV, and I didn't know it was the match between him and Dusty Rhodes. And I thought, oh my God, and this is the one where Dusty wins. And this is going to look bad here. Harley sitting there signing his autographs, and all the fans are saying, "Oh, look, there you are, Harley." And so I tried to, and I'm a big guy, so I'm trying to sneak in this small lunch area, and I'm going to try to get in behind him and reach up and eject the VHS tape out of it. And I get just up to the eject button, and Harley looks at me and says, "Big boy, if you eject that, we're going to have a problem."
That was such a good match.
It was a great match, and he's sitting there like a kid at a candy shop. But it's memories like that I always say the only thing you take it away from me is Alzheimer or dementia, and I hope I never get that because I've got so many great memories, So, and for Harley to sit there and say, "Don't eject that. I want to see it," So
Yeah.
He's admiring his work in the respect of another.
sure, great matches, I'll tell you. And so many of them type of memories out there, like I said, him and Bruiser Brody and Ric Flair, in St. Louis, 3 1-hour time limit draws, and I mean, you talk about two guys that could go, nonstop. And I remember the one night Ed Smith was the referee, and they injected him into the finish of that match, and there was so many beer cups stowed inside of that ring you couldn't see the canvas.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was wild. I mean, believe me. And so when they did their job.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just going to turn my attention just real quick. I've had this up there, just sicw.org. That's going to be your go-to if you're looking to maybe get tickets or if you want to reserve something, especially for this big Belleville little Devils fundraiser. sicw.org is your outlet to try and get information for tickets on that. And what I'll do here is we'll probably do one if Corey had chimed in here, and if you could think one of the better ones here, he would like to see if you could tell us a Bruiser Brody story.
My first encounter of Bruiser Brody was probably the one that scared the bejesus out of me. You got to remember, and I don't know if you guys do, but he always had a reputation of no-showing promoters. And when we were running at the Belclair Fairgrounds back in the late 70s and into the 80s, Larry Matisek would always show up. And at that time, I was using a lot of the Nashville boys, as I said, Tojo Yamamoto, Gypsy Joe, Saul Winecroft's boy, George, Iceman King Parsons, people like that. And one night, Larry says, and we were putting a couple thousand people in there on a Thursday night because that was the only night of the month that they'd have available, because the rest of the weekends were always packed with bingos and flea markets and things like that. So Thursday night was the only thing I could get. And Larry standing there, and he said, "Man, Herb, what would you think about bringing Frank in here?" And I looked around and I said, "Bruiser Brody coming to Belleville, Illinois, never happened." He said, "Well, let me make a phone call and we'll see." A couple of days later, he calls me and says, "I talked to Frank and he wants to talk with you." And so I give him a call, introduce myself, and and I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. So I make the deal with him, and I get a date, I book him, and all along I'm asking Larry, now wait a minute, I know he stood up the Bruiser, he stood up all these other promoters, and Larry would always tell me, he'd say, "Yeah, but it was really, they had it coming to them. They screwed him out of money or this or that." And so we book him. Man, we got billboards. I've got TV ads playing. Bruiser Brody coming to Belclair Fairgrounds in Belleville, Illinois, the biggest thing that hits the town. And we show up that night, and fans are standing. And you've been up there. I mean, they were literally out the parking lot, out towards the McDonald's across the street in line waiting to get in. And so they get him in the building, and I mean, it's and at that time we were starting at 8:00, and we're in the back and we're getting everything lined up and ready to go, and I'm looking at my watch, and Larry, I can't get him on his phone. Of course, back then, you had these big bag phones. You didn't have these little pocket phones. So I'm thinking, man, what the heck's going on? And my booker at that time was a guy named D. Heil, who was one of the assassins from back in the Memphis territorial days with Jody Hamilton and people like that. And He said, Herb, what do you think? And I said, what do you mean? What do I think? And I said, Larry told me he'd be here. He said, well, man, oh man, it's about 7:30. So I walk out underneath that canopy on the side door there, and I'm pacing back and forth, and you could literally hear the fans inside chanting Brody, Brody, Brody. And I keep walking, and I'm looking out towards that gate, and I don't see nobody. I'm trying to call Larry's phone. I'm thinking, at that time, I was in the ambulance. I ran the ambulance company, and I'm on my bag phone calling him, and no answer. And my wife comes to the side door, and she says, "Hun, what's going on? Do you hear him in there?" And I said, "Yeah, I hear him in there." She says, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "What are we going to do? What are you going to do?" I'm going to get in this ambulance and drive away is what I'm going to do, because if he don't show up, we're in trouble. And all I can think in my mind is all of the horror stories that I was told that, he'll stand you up, he won't show. It gets to be about 7:55, and I'm looking out towards that gate, and I see what I think is Larry's car. He was driving an old Buick at that time, and sure enough, here it comes down that long road, and he pulls up right next to where I was sitting at. And I just remember, larger than life guy gets out of the passenger side, and Larry is just sitting behind the wheel, and he's just smiling like, crap beating grin, and this big guy gets out of the car, and he's got his hair back in a ponytail. He's got a pair of shorts on and his tennis shoes, and he's got his gym bag in his hand, and he gets out, and he's adjusting his ponytail, and he walks up to me and sticks his hand out, and he says, "Big boy, I bet you didn't think I was coming, did you?" And of course I said, heck, I wasn't worried about it. So went in, had a great show, and from that point on, we developed a business relationship next to none. And any time that I ever had him booked, he'd always show. And every night he'd walk in the dressing room, he'd walk up to me and say, "Big boy, what do you want tonight?" And I'm thinking, here this guy is larger than life, and here I am, just a little bitty old promoter, just following my dream and chasing it. And he's asking me what I'm wanting tonight, and I'd always say, send him home happy. And whether it be against Abby or against Nard the Barbarian or Dick Murdoch or Jerry Blackwell, whoever I'd have him against, they gave it 110% every time. So that was my first encounter with Bruiser Brody, and I loved it. And man, but of course, if he hadn't showed up, I'd have been in trouble.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, I would imagine so. Man, but
And thanks for asking that question, Corey. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was definitely a good story to hear, because I don't think I remember hearing that one before.
Yeah. That's one of those ones I like to forget about because it still brings back those bad memories.
Right, of course. Yeah, because you're sweating bullets. But let me see if I can bring back to. I know I can, because we've been up for a good while. But let's remind the fans once again. This coming. Hold on.
And I know the Miz said that he's not a fan of the lumberjack match. You know how lumberjack matches came about?
No, I don't. So enlighten me, my friend.
Lumberjacks got the name from back in the logging days of the lumberjacks. And when, two lumberjacks, like everything else, maybe have a misunderstanding, maybe somebody cut down more logs than they did in one day and they lost some bets or something, they would actually form a circle of the lumberjacks, and those two men would go to work and settle their differences. And same thing there. If they got outside of that circle, the other lumberjacks would waylay them and throw them back into the middle, and that's how the name lumberjack match came about.
That's very fair. It's just something I don't know what it is. It's like the one match in professional wrestling that I have never been like keen to enjoy.
Yeah.
But see, and again, and you've been around long enough. There's reasons why certain matches take place. it's another pet peeve I have is when an organization advertises, they go somewhere and they advertise a cage match right off the bat. A cage match in St. Louis was never used unless all those other style of matches had been. A cage match was designed to keep two guys in it that couldn't stay in the ring, or there was always outside interference, and this was the way you were going to contain them. In St. Louis, there was never the rule in order to win a cage match, you had to climb over the top and get out. That's the most silliest thing that I've ever heard of, because why not just go over to the gate and get out? But in a cage match in St. Louis, it was always basically a fight to the finish, the Texas death matches, they used to call them. The person couldn't get out, couldn't get in. The manager back then, which there was only one manager in St. Louis back in the day, and that was Bobby Heenan. Managers wasn't as prevalent as they are nowadays. Sometimes they got 5, 6 of them on card. But you'd have your handicap match when you're trying to push the big star, and then you'd have the other strap match or the dog collar match, the lumberjack match. And that was usually because guys would always get out of the ring and run around and try to hide from the other one. And the theory was the lumberjacks would keep them in the ring. So that's how that came about.
Oh, I respect. I mean, one of my favorite. So I'm a tag team kid. I like tag team matches the best. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel. And then for the singles match, Extreme Rules happened. Saturday night, last night, strap match. That's one of my favorite. Bull rope match, the dog chain match, the dog collar match. Like, I've always enjoyed those. Those are fun to me. So that's just how it is. Like,
it's all in what your preference is, and that's why they've all got a meaning for them. But if you book it right, the meaning means more. Especially when you've got the fans following it. It's a lot easier to tell the story if you got the TV and people are able to follow what it is. And that's what I like kind of with our fans, is that they watch it on a Sunday night, or sometime during the week they'll catch it, and then they know why. Oh, okay, when we were there 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, these two guys had this going on, and so wouldn't stay in the ring, and now when they get out of the ring now, they're going to beat the crap out of them and throw them back in. And so it's a lot easier to tell the story that way.
Makes a lot of sense. I get it.
Yeah.
So like I said, with this coming Saturday night is East Cauliflower Community Center, and of course, like I said, that big Central States Championship Lumberjack match as your main event. And of course, also a feature match of the Big Texan and Sheik Prater going at it as well.
And you see that Bush Bavarian sign right there, don't you?
Yeah, there it is.
It's right there, right in your face.
Bush, yeah, the old original Bush Bavarian beer. There you go. Oh my God, that's awesome. So 618-286-4848 if you want to reserve tickets, and of course save your tickets to come back the following day for the TV tapings for SICW All-Star Wrestling, which can be seen at 8 o'clock live on YouTube with SICW, and then also on Roku on SICW, and then of course also SICW Wrestling Explosion here on Facebook. So awesome stuff. Well, gentlemen, another show in the books. Appreciate everything that you have brought us here tonight, here, Ms. Herb. And I, like I said, I definitely hope that, like I said, almost 50 years in the books here for you. You've done quite a bit, and I know that I'm very appreciative of what you've done to contribute here in this business, and for me also to be part of the SICW locker room as well. And just hopefully nothing but bigger and better things to come.
Well, I really appreciate you guys inviting me back on. It's always my pleasure to come in and fill some of your time for you. And again, I can't thank you guys for what you do to help keep the business alive out there. And I know there's a lot of, as we said at the beginning, there's controversy from time to time, but you guys do a lot to bring all the positive energy, and I think that's what needs to be. There's another generation out there that's hopefully they can sit back and say, "Hey, remember when Ruby and all the hosts and them that they've had and kept the tradition alive," and you guys ought to be proud of that.
Yes.
Yep. And we're doing our best. So, any final words from you, Z?
I mean, I don't have really anything, but are we planning on still talking about what happened Saturday night with?
Right.
Yeah, you got to talk about that. Yeah.
Like
There's fans been hanging on out there. Don't make them mad at you.
Oh, right. Yep. So, oh my goodness, yeah. So, how about we do this here? So if you were watching WWE Extreme Rules yesterday,
Can I? Okay, so I don't wrestle. I just a commentator. That's it. I just talk. That's all I do. Can I just appreciate the fact that Corey Graves and Michael Cole gave me some of the best commentary to date in the WWE? Can I just say that? Can I thoroughly say that? Because I enjoyed everything about the commentary last night. Last night. I'm getting confused. Been traveling. So the commentary from them, like telling the backstories of Gunther and going into his detail and his history in England and stuff and the UK was just beautiful. And then the fact that he went into full depth about the history of the strap match, which, like I said just a few minutes ago, is one of my personal favorite matches, was just amazing. Like, I cannot thank WWE enough for letting the reins just drop for those two, and beautiful commentary.
Yeah, the way it should be. You need to give some backstories to that. And so, of course, at the end of the night, you've seen finally all the White Rabbit talk is finally there's an answer, and Bray Wyatt didn't make his return. So we're going to post this on We Talk Wrestling, and we want to see some answers when we talk about this next week. But where do you see Bray Wyatt going towards first in WWE on his return? That's what I would like to know.
He's going right to the top.
Going to go right to the top. I mean, do you think he's going to target? Do you think he's going to target any faction? Target anybody in particular? Do you see him, go more towards a fan favorite? Or do you think he's going to try to return as a somebody that they despise? That's just a lot that you could talk about with that. So,
I mean, it's one of the best, easily one of the best builds, and for the vignettes, all that, to his re-debut at Extreme Rules. Like, Chris Jericho's the only dude in recent modern history of wrestling, in my opinion, that's had the greatest like returns or like debuts. So for Bray to have this whole, like, people were going out of their way to find out the little bits and story pieces, the codes, everything. WWE knocked it out of the park, and I'm excited to see Bray back.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we're going to be posting that on We Talk Wrestling, and we'll go over some answers here, hopefully next week with that. So, what if you gentlemen want to hang out in the room afterwards just a tad? And once again, Herb, thanks a lot for coming on and taking your time out once again to enlighten your knowledge, and also to help with getting the word out as far as what big things that continue to happen for SICW. And once again, I thank you again for showing up here, and like, definitely with your presence here on the podcast once again, it's always a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Like I said, keep up the good work, and keep spreading the word about what we love.
Absolutely. So this concludes episode number 73 of the Falls Count Everywhere podcast, featuring Mr. Herb Simmons, and for myself, Rough Cut Rick Ruby, and the Gem City Mount Zmiz. Yes, you are partying out we are out of here, and we'll see you next week. Keep tuning into the page to see who we're going to have on the show. And you guys have a great week.
Big things to come.
Big things to come for sure. And have a good night, guys.
Thanks again for tuning in to tonight's episode of the Falls
There.
Count Everywhere podcast. Don't forget our friends at the following: Outside the Ring STL, the Searcher and Hide podcast, and We Talk Wrestling. The Falls Count Everywhere podcast is an LTX Enterprises production.